Hi, I'm animation author and historian Mindy Johnson, and welcome to the 2022 Spark Animation Festival. We are elated that you are here, and we appreciate your continued support for the vital efforts occurring all throughout the year with ranging programs and content here at Spark 2020. Within our Legacy and Legends track, we are so delighted to share with you another remarkable session exploring aspects of our collected animated past. And it's my great pleasure to introduce the 55th anniversary celebration panel event for one of the true gems in the Disney canon of feature animated films, The Jungle Book. We are so fortunate to have this film brought to life in an exciting new exhibition now open at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, a real gem of a museum. And joining us today in celebration of this landmark film and this wonderful celebration exhibition, Walt Disney's Jungle Book, The Making of a Masterpiece, are Bruce Reitherman, the original voice of Mowgli from the film, and the son of the film's director, Walt Reitherman, as well as legendary animator Andreas Deja, and the exhibition designer Marina, Villar, Delgado. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Terrific fun. Well, I can't believe we're at the 55th anniversary of this remarkable film, and it's a great joy to be able to have you, Bruce, with us as one of the original cast members. It's always a joy to see you again, it's a wonderful story about the great experiences you had in making this film, particularly under the direction of your father. Talk a little bit, let's start with how you got that role. You had done some voice work for the company in one of my first forays into animation was, you were the voice of Christopher Robin, right?
Yeah, by the time Jungle Book came along, I was an old hat. I had, cut my teeth at the wise old age of 7 years old or something like that, probably 7 or 8 years old, performing the role of Christopher Robin in what was the original Winnie the Pooh short, the Honey Tree version. And that was great fun and turned out to be a real education for me. And then as the Jungle Book started production and as the Winnie the Pooh short finished, I think the animators and the directors had toyed with a number of different voice ideas, as they always did, and sort of found it necessary to settle on a kid who had kind of an authentic adolescence about them, that wasn't too steeped in maybe the trade of the actor who didn't chew the scenery. There was so much entertainment value going on in that film and so many big personalities that what they really needed at the center of it was a simple story about a kid who just doesn't want to go back to the man village until, spoiler alert, he kind of does at the end. And that makes for a very interesting, I think, combination of these really dynamic personality, entertainment, really big personality with this really simple little intimate story.
Yeah. So you kind of came about the role in a little bit of an indirect way, though. You were certainly right place, right time, and right experience. But there was another young fellow who was cast ahead of you. Is that correct?
Well, I think you have to keep in mind, cast ahead. Yeah, you have to keep in mind that these films took a very, very long time. And so if you pick somebody who's 11 or 12, and it's a 3.5-year production period during which you might be recording lines, that's a very perilous decision. I mean, it's really hard to find an 11-year-old whose voice hasn't changed by the time he's 13. So I think there was a lot of that involved, and I had to go back and re-record some lines. So it was really it was largely an artistic decision that was just based on the idea that they were trying to find a kid who sounded natural and authentic makes it sound a little bit too fancy, but it's just real, just ordinary.
Yeah. Well, and your genuineness, that authenticity you brought to it is so fun, so engaging. And yet, to your point, such larger than life other characters that you have to be in this world with. Did you get an opportunity to work with any of the other voice talent while in production?
Well, so the characters you mentioned are the combination of two things, right? There's the voice talent for sure, but then there's obviously the craft of the animator and all the different artists that put those things into a visual package. With regard to the actual voice talents, very rarely did I actually record any of my audio with them in the studio at the same time, which is kind of par for the course. Rarely does that happen, except in maybe some episodic television where they have to work fast and they almost work ensemble in a room all together. In most feature film animation like that, the voices are recorded separately, and that's pretty much what I did. I did, however, because my dad was the director, there's a little bit of fringe benefits associated with that. And because I was interested in music, for example, he would bring me down to the studio on days when something interesting was happening. And my mom would pick me up at 2 o'clock or something in the tail end of the school day, and she'd bring me down to see something that was just plain interesting. And so I was there, to see Phil Harris and Sebastian Cabot, the people that performed the roles of Baloo the bear and Bagheera the panther, as they kind of interacted a little bit and looked at storyboards and probably recorded dialogue each in their own way later in that day. So there was a certain camaraderie, and Phil Harris was always really nice to me, and my dad had a little bit of a relationship that went on beyond the film for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that he performed other character voices in subsequent films. But largely it was a rather solitary exercise for a little kid in a great big room with a great big microphone, and quite a lot to go on in terms of imagining the context, because they take you through the storyboards. They take you through these great big, well, Andreas has one that maybe some of you can see or will be able to see later. Essentially a storyboard, a great big bulletin board where little cocktail napkin sized images, almost like a comic book almost, laid out on a big board, were available. And that was something that I sort of had. It was almost like being a kid who's going to do a job and knows that it has serious consequences, but then they're going to read you a bedtime story. They're going to just sort of stand there, and you have your little cup of hot chocolate while you're getting ready to record, and several very entertaining people sort of take you through what is the story context for what might only be a few sentences that you record in any one day, so that they make sense to you as an actor. Even as a kid, I understood that I was performing a role, and that required understanding who I was in the moment and where the story was.
Let's talk about a few of those artists that you may have worked with. Andreas, this film has had a major impact for you, and I know it was a big part of what got you into animation, but many of the artists working on this film have had lasting impact on you as an artist. Let's talk about some of those people that you may have worked with.
Well, I didn't really work with...
Bruce may have worked with, my apologies.
I had a chance to meet them when I started at Disney in August of 1980, because it was great timing for me, because I was there at Disney. I had a job. Not only that, but the old guys were still around town, and I could visit them and meet them. Frank Thomas and Ollie Jones were working on their first book upstairs, and Bruce's dad, Wooly, was still around working on some projects. So they were all around, either at the studio or outside of the studio. So I made it sort of a habit in looking them up and having conversations with them, invite them to dinner and ask them all these questions. And the interesting thing that I found out was that when they saw that you were really passionate about what you wanted to know, they gave you pretty much all the time that you needed. And they were very patient with you. And even though I think once in a while I made myself a nuisance and asked too many questions, but I just wanted to take advantage of the situation of having them there. It was just such a wonderful opportunity to see that these people were human, because you see these movies, not just Jungle Book, but the other ones on the screen, and they are so unbelievably perfect and magical, almost like no humans can make this. This is just too perfect, And to find out that these were normal guys who had their ups and downs and their triumphs, but also frustrations. There was a little rivalry going on here and there. So it just made it normal for me in a way that I could think, well, maybe I can do this too.
Yeah, no, I think knowing that it was this film that got you started in animation, that had to have had a lot of resonance, finally being able to connect with these particular artists. Now, Bruce, you mentioned that they were there on hand showing you the storyboards and giving a sense? Any particular artist that you recall that stood out for you?
Well, it wouldn't have been, unfortunately, those guys were up in their offices, drawing like crazy, and they had no time for the likes of me. But typically it was story guys, Larry Clemens and my dad, who would typically lead me through those things. But I have very fond memories as a kid, younger than this, and then even a little older, as Andreas suggests that a lot of these guys were around at that same time. And the generosity of those fellows was really quite remarkable. They always had time for me. My dad would, roll in there to pick something up in the afternoon, or maybe on a Saturday. Sometimes we'd go in on our way to go do something else as a family. And some of those guys would be there, and he'd always say, "Well, go back and talk to John Lounsbury. Just wander back there. He's not doing anything important, or go down to Frank and Ollie's room. You'll be amazed at what they're up to, because they're working on something that you might be interested in." And you'd be in there for half an hour. I'll say generous, but I do suspect that in some cases they were getting their pound of flesh out of me, because I think they thought of me as a little test audience. Here I've got 15 minutes with a 9-year-old, and I can see if this stuff is actually working. But I just, obviously they're all really wonderful people. And to Andreas's point, and I think to the point of the museum exhibition that we'll talk about here in a minute, there was a genius there that kind of goes underappreciated. It's really underappreciated what incredible talent these guys had, and passed on to people like Andreas, honestly. And that's the legacy that I think I'm proudest of. I love that I was a voice in this movie that's become such an icon from that era. But my dad's legacy is really quite remarkable, and the way it was carried, it perpetuated itself. The way it persisted. It was really, it wasn't easy, and it was quite an achievement, and it's a thing I'm really quite proud of.
Well, it's considered to be Walt Disney's last film that he touched and had impact on. He didn't get to see it released ultimately. That was your dad taking the helm and ensuring that animation continued. And at that point as well, we've got artists at the zenith of their career, really, who have come through decades of experience and learning and creating an art form, and they really have all systems, all parts of the engine operating in just fine-tuned perfection on this film. In your minds, gentlemen, what is it that makes this film so lasting and so unique, set apart from everything else within the Walt Disney canon?
Okay, since Bruce is silent, I'm going to start on this one. I think, and we talked about this before amongst ourselves, one of the reasons why The Jungle Book is so beloved and people connect with the film and the characters is because the story is so simple. Here's this kid who wants to stay in the jungle, but he's being asked to join the man village, and he doesn't want to. And just wandering through the jungle, he meets these eccentric characters, who cause some trouble. But it's so much more simple than, let's say, Peter Pan or Cinderella, where you have definite story plots. You have to cover. You have to be here, and you have to be there, and then you have to have the chase sequence, and then there's all this story material to cover, and like in any film or Disney film. But Jungle Book is really simple, which means that the animators had a lot of freedom to expand on the character concepts and let these scenes, where they're with each other, whether it's Mowgli with King Louie or Baloo and Bagheera, and let them be with each other for a while and interact, and work with those great voices. And really, those scenes have breathing room. You don't rush through a sequence. It's all very casual, the way Baloo meets Mowgli. Mowgli is in a bad mood. He wants to be left alone. And a few scenes later, they are boxing and sparring partners, and it's also natural and casual and simple. And I think that's one of the main reasons why people just love these characters.
Yeah, it's some of the best, I think, personality character animation out there still today. It's such a masterclass in personality coming through.
I love the way when Andreas was talking about the animators having more flexibility. There's like Jafar, appreciating the powers that he had available to him. No, I think that's exactly right. Simplicity, driven by personality. There's a sense in which it's almost like a piece of music, a Moonlight Sonata or something that's a very simple piece of music. But the reality is that the performer is terribly exposed, that a problem in any of those ways can pop the bubble of magic that surrounds what is a movie. We suspend our disbelief. We're captivated by it, regardless of our age. It's really an achievement. When you think it's all made up of these flat drawings that start off with pencil marks on a piece of paper, and then you add color and music and all these other different things. To sustain that with something as simple and as effortless as what the Jungle Book seems to be, really reveals that underneath it all was people at the top of their craft, working together as a unit with their own special talents, their own special contributions, in a way where the individual components of it mesh together seamlessly into something that is just a single work of art. I know Andreas will probably have really strong feelings and opinions and memories about, I know that Milt called, Shere Khan with the way he turns, and it's incredible. And the performance that Ollie Johnson got out of the Baloo and Mowgli dancing together, he'll see the individual pieces, but for the rest of us, it's simply a single work of art in the same way that, I don't mean to get hyperbolic or whatever, but the Sistine Chapel or something where it's this huge, episodic thing with all these different pieces, but it doesn't feel like a bunch of pieces. It feels like a ceiling.
What a great point about this film is that the music, the score from this film, the great list of songs that populate this and advance this story. Our dear Richard Sherman is still with us. We are grateful for that. But the Sherman Brothers music, what kind of impact did that have for you, Bruce, while working on this film?
Well, again, there's just magic captured in a bottle, in a microphone. When you think about the music, the compositions are so perfect. And again, they have such a sense of joyful enjoyment about them. You can't just listen to "You're My Friend" or "I Want to Be Like You" or "Trust in Me" without having a little sense of just kind of a childlike kind of appreciation, enjoyment for what wonderful ideas they are and how well executed they are. It's really remarkable, and at a time when music was, it's probably worth remembering, at a time when music was going through some changes. This is 1967, for heaven's sakes. We often forget that there was an awful lot going on at that time. And if you look at the slate of other films that were nominated for Academy Awards, for example, you'd see some films that don't look a lot like The Jungle Book, that were much more socially relevant, for lack of a better two words to describe those sorts of films. But this music really captured something that's timeless. And when you think about it, it's awfully quirky. What the heck are we doing with a Dixieland band in the middle of an Indian rainforest being sung by an orangutan, with a little guy, playing the trumpet on a banana leaf with his kazoo or whatever? Just the sheer kind of inventive delight of the whole thing is, I just find that really impressive and enjoyable.
Yeah. Andreas?
Well, to me, why some of the songs really stand out is because they are character driven. When you hear Colonel Harthy's march, it's very militant, and it's this great march, and it tells you something about who Colonel Harthy is and what he does. When Baloo sings the bare necessities, you know immediately who he is and who he's, how he looks at life. So you really find out through songs who these characters are. And of course, I love, and Bruce just mentioned it, I love this "trust in me." They found every S word that they could possibly be put into that song, just so we have the hissing sound of the snake. It's just so character rich and fun.
Yeah, and advancing the story forward in so many ways. Marina, what were some of the challenges of integrating the music into the exhibition?
it was very easy because it helps so much to illustrate that part and the character, like the Bruce and Andreas were saying, you know. I mean, you go almost from a lullaby to full jazz in the jungle. So it's exceptional. The music is so, I mean, the quality is the best. I mean, it's so many different themes, you know, touching every different character. So it wasn't difficult at all. On the contrary, the music was helping to, you know, to accompany the whole, you know, the whole setting. So I think it was a big help.
It's worth remembering too that it wasn't just the songs too, right? The background score, George Bruns, is spectacular. You know, just watch the opening credits. If that doesn't send a chill up your spine, you don't have a pulse. And then on top of that, you get the artistry of the background art, and all the layouts and things are just incredibly rich and atmospheric. But the music provides not just the songs, but the whole musical soundtrack really provides as everyone's been saying, sort of a story. I don't know. It's integral to the story in every single way.
Yeah, for me, in recently rewatching in preparation here, what struck out a great piece of work. Each time you see it, there's always something new to pull from it. And as many times as I've seen that film, there's still always something fresh to see and hear and experience in it. And for me, bringing up George Bruns, thank you for that, Bruce, because that theme, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, all throughout the film, but we finally get lyric to it in that closing moment with Darlene Carr's haunting voice, and the little girl luring you away to that man village.
Did that on purpose.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, masterfully woven together, just seamlessly. And to your point, Andreas, bringing so many terrific styles, and as you mentioned, Marina, such a range of styles together in this kind of seemingly, you would think it wouldn't work, but boy, does it ever. It just does. It
makes a new set of rules by breaking all the old ones. I mean, when you think about it and actually just as a side idea that I'm always really impressed with about Jungle Book is the courage involved in deciding to do something so very, very different. Because the Disney animation mode was set, everybody knew what to expect from a Walt Disney animated feature, even though they'd been evolving a bit with 101 Dalmatians and Sword in the Stone. They've been moving in different directions to some extent. But this was a whole new ball of wax. And we're going to not concentrate on what we think of as story quite so much in the sense that it's plot moments that are carefully sequenced together, but we're going to tell a story. It's still a rich story. Nobody says they don't get the story. It's just told in a very different way. And that in itself is emblematic, I think, of what was core to Walt Disney's whole ethos, which is that I'm not done yet. I'm exploring something that we've only just begun to understand.
Yeah, no, most definitely. You've got the great rich work of Larry Clements and Vance Gary and Floyd Norman and so many other terrific story artists and story people. And not only the success of this film, but where it kept animation moving on to the legacy beyond this film with Aristocats and Robin Hood, and just sustaining animation. Many people felt with Walt passing, this was no longer going to continue. And yet a tip of the hat to your talented father and taking the helm, Bruce, and again, he spoke many times about the challenges of corralling talent and kind of keeping them on task with getting a film completed.
And cultivating new young talent too, right? And recognizing that all these guys, while they were at the top of their game, they were all, getting to the point that they were about ready to retire soon, within a few years. No, it's really quite an achievement. It's a whole other story that we could dive into more deeply, but it's worth appreciating too that maybe throughout the entire history of Disney animation, we think of these things as so successful on every level. But in their time, many of them were economically really marginal. And again, as an artist, Disney just said, no, I'm going to mortgage the farm. I'm just going to double down. I'm going to devote myself to to an unwillingness to let marginal financial success dissuade me from trying to figure out how to perfect this thing one more time. And that was certainly the case following The Jungle Book. These films had become very expensive, took them a very long time to make. Other artistic films of the era were much easier to make and were still having huge box office success. And if they hadn't managed to get audiences to come to see Jungle Book, Aristocats, Robin Hood, Rescuers, the likes of Andreas, they might have been working at a different studio, because animation as we know it at Disney would have become something totally different, which would have been a tragedy.
Exactly. What we would have missed out on had this not succeeded. Very true. No, I think you've each touched on some great aspects about this film, and there's so much to be exploring in it. And Marina, I want to bring you in. There's such great storytelling happening in this film, and what a responsibility that you've mastered beautifully, by the way, to be able to bring this story to life in another form, a different type of storytelling, the storytelling of exhibition. There are some wonderful experiences here within. I had the great good fortune of experiencing it not too long ago, and it is such an immersive world that we get to dive in. What were some of the challenges? And gentlemen, speak to this too. I'm going to add, this is the entr'acte to the exhibition, and right away the world is established here at the Diane Disney Miller Exhibition Hall up at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. And really, in shaping this world, I know we've got some slides that give us a sneak peek into the exhibition. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges. You and Andreas worked quite closely together, I know, in shaping this. Before we get to the pictures, let's talk a little bit about how does one begin on telling this story in an exhibition form?
Well, as you say, we were very close, and we are very close with Andreas. We work 3 previous exhibitions to this one, so we kind of understand very well each other. And Andreas was very clear and has a clear idea how he wants to present the exhibition. So it was challenging, but it was very easy at the same time, because he wants the visitor to immerse completely in the film. So the only way to do that was lay out in the exhibition as the film flow, as chronological. So that's the way we present the exhibition. And I think the people that has seen the movie or the people that is not, it takes you there, so you can understand perfectly how the movie works since the beginning to the end, and it's a good way to introduce all the characters. Every section that we create is when a new character appears in Mowgli live. So that's the way that we decide to lay out the exhibition. And again, it was at the beginning, I was a little afraid not to have enough art or enough graphics to illustrate and to tell the whole story. But we were very fortunate because Andreas has a fantastic collection, and we were able to lay out everything perfectly and fill all the gaps that I was afraid at the beginning. So we normally present at the museum, we present the exhibitions in 3D format. So we work with a program that, you really think that you are already in the exhibition, which is what you have right now on view. Those are no photographs, those are the renders. So this is before anything was happening. And it was very clear, and Andreas loved it since the beginning, the way we roughly lay out the exhibition. And it was very easy to fill the gaps. It's a lot of art in this show. It's about over 270 objects. and 150 graphics, and over, I think, 25 clips that illustrates the whole exhibition, the whole movie. And like I say, we go by sections. So we started at the beginning. The first image you see when you enter in the galleries is the story origins. So how this started, so with the Kipling books, and we have originals books. So, well, we start the exhibition this way, and how the studio was facing the Walt's vision and the artist's vision at the beginning. So there are different layouts and sketches, at the beginning, since the beginning, rough animation drawings at the San Diego zoo when they were studying animals. So this is the first room, and then we start with the exhibition. Well, no, start the exhibition. We start with the movie, which is a strange legend. So every section of the movie, which it introduces, like I say, a new character, has a title, and normally goes with the character that we are presenting. As you know, the first and the conductor of the movie, we could say that is Bagheera. I don't know if we all agree on that, but I mean, it's the character that starts the movie and continues, taking Mowgli through this long journey. And he keeps, finding other friends and, and new challenges through the trip that he makes. And we take advantage on all this on this trip to introduce everything that was happening at the studios, like, introducing the artists that were doing the voiceover, or the animators, the ideas they had. We have interviews in those medias, and we have some activities for kids to feel that they are closer to their friends, like Baloo. Who doesn't want to dance with Baloo? Everyone wants to have fun with him, is the most fun character in the movie. So we have an activity that we call Dancing With, which is a green screen. You get in front of the camera, and then you have some clips, and you make your choice, which is your favorite character to dance with, and then you go and do your thing there. We also have another activity, which is voiceover, so you can put voice into different characters like Mowgli or Bagheera or Baloo. So, this is for the little kids, but I see in the gallery many old people doing the same thing, so it seems very engaging for everyone. But yeah, the exhibition goes, through, introduce all the characters as you are walking, which is the flow of the exhibition. The flow of the film.
And, for me, one of the big challenges, I would think, is this idea you've got such an embarrassment of riches, such great artwork and exploration and just creativity happening in this film. How did you go about, Andreas, making choices for telling this story? As Marina was saying, it's chronological, but at the same time, you have so much wonderful artwork to choose from. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is there was an abundance of original artwork that I had collected over the decades. So we were not short on that for the most part. There were sections where we were a little bit lean, like the vultures section. There was just a little model sheet that I had, but we didn't really have any outstanding artwork to cover the vulture section. But the amazing thing is we found out that the Disney photo library has all the negatives for shots and photographs that shows you behind the scenes process, whether it's voice recording or the animators or anything like that. But they also have a ton of high-res files of film frames from the Jungle Book. And I compare this to other movies like Cinderella or Peter Pan. They only have a few, let's say 20 maybe, but it seems like for Jungle Book, they had like 300. And we took advantage of that. And we could take these beautiful high-res images of the trees and the characters on top. Sometimes it was only the background, sometimes with the character, but blow these things up life-size. So the trees that you see on the walls are like life-size trees. And that's when it became really immersive, and you really feel like you're walking through the jungle with the characters. So, but that was luck, because only the Jungle Book, they only had that much inventory in terms of high-res images for the Jungle Book.
It is an exhibition to experience. Typically, when you're going to a museum, it's, you know, you're taking in a different level. But this one really drops you into the film and the making of the film, and you're there surrounded by original artistry. Let's talk a little bit about some of the artists whose work you'll see, original work that you'll see in this film. Andreas, you want to?
Yeah, sure. Well, we even have outtakes, or we even show how the movie was developed at first. There was a top-notch story artist called Bill Peet, and he was probably next to Walt, the best storyteller they had at the studio. And he read the Kipling books and kind of did a Rudyard Kipling version as an animated treatment. And
much darker, heavy-handed.
Yeah, and it turned out Walt thought it was too dark, that he missed the entertainment, that he thought we could get more out of the animals and the interaction. And but we have in script form, and also some storyboards. We have that version, so people can actually go to a monitor and read through what the story of the Jungle Book could have been, and maybe even find out why Walt wanted to change it. So we have some really gems in there. Another document which I absolutely love is where Walt had just seen the rough animation of the complete King Louis sequence, and he gives the animators notes, and he points out what he likes and what he doesn't like. You know, he liked the animation that Frank Thomas and Milt Powell had done, but he said, in terms of the design, he said, I can't see the characters' eyes. They're so tiny. You guys are thinking too much about a real orangutan. You know, make the eyes larger so I can see them. And while you're at it, put some hair on his head. He looks strange. So he gives these top designers very specific notes. You know, so we have those wonderful documents as well. And then in terms of the art, we have a lot of rough animation. This is the kind of artwork that I like to study. These are really the animators' drawings, not the assistant drawings, you know, copying the animators' drawings. So we have a lot of those. They're interesting because sometimes they show you the struggle that the animator goes through when they erase an arm and they move the arm from here to here because it was in the wrong place. You see all that on paper. You don't see that on film, obviously. But that's sort of a nice way to experience what the animators go through and how they work these things out. We have quite a few cell setups. So yeah, there's a range of artwork. We also took some interview clips from a particular TV show that was filmed during the early 1980s, I think 1984. It was done for the then new Disney Channel, and it was called the Disney Family Album. That's right. And so we had access to some of the outtakes and did some really rare interview clips where Wooly or Frank and Ollie on the talk about specific assignments and what was unique about them. So we have those on small screen. So it's really a nice potpourri of art and wallpaper and audio, and I think it's a ton of fun.
It takes you into the entire process. If you really want to gain an understanding of the development of any feature-length animated film, but certainly in the analog days but the creative process, and there's so much discovery that has to unfold through the course of any film being made. But that's the beauty of this exhibition is a wonderful exploration of that you know, early designs on characters that are different than the character, very different from the final character that we know and love. But somewhere there is a journey of discovery to get to that. Once the voice talent comes in and what they bring to the performance as well, It's always fascinating to me, and that's a large part of what I do and what I love about what I get to do. And you guys have beautifully put this together. For you, Bruce, what has it been like now, seeing this 55 years later in an exhibition form? What new aspect have you discovered about this experience you had many years ago through this exhibition?
Well, I'm so glad that you all teased apart the remarkable quality about the exhibition, which is that it contains moments of what inspired the story, and then the evolution of things that were pieces of it, and also the process of it, because perhaps most of the people watching this understand that animation is by its very nature this amazing process where lines drawn on a piece of tracing paper somehow get passed from person to person to person to person and end up as a full color thing on a motion picture screen or a television screen. And the way that you bounce back and forth, Marina and Andreas, between moments that make you remember how you felt when you might have first seen it, even though you might have been a kid, and perhaps a more adult appreciation for, I'll be doggone, that's how it was really that tough to get to that place. Or I had no idea that they had 3 other ideas for how the shape of Baloo. And you know what? They came up with a pretty good solution, because the first couple 3 were pretty scraggly, and he looked a little bit more like somebody you might not want dancing around with your kids so much. He looked a little bit scruffy. Just as an example, that's the thing that really strikes me about the exhibit. The exhibit is a thing unto itself. It is about the movie, and it incorporates a sense of what the movie's all about, but it expands on what the movie does, which is entertain, and gives you this understanding of what's involved in Disney magic at its finest. And I was really inspired. I think it's an exhibit that will stand the test of time. I hope it travels, and those virtual drawings that you showed us earlier, Marina, renderings, not drawings, of what the spaces look like are an amazing little piece of archival jewelry, because they're precious. The exhibit is really a thing to behold. I encourage anybody to take the time to get up there and take a look. The museum's beautiful. The Disney Museum is awesome on a number of different levels. This thing won't be there forever, so run, don't walk. Go see it.
Agreed. Now, there's also, in addition to the exhibition, for those who may or may not be able to travel, it runs until February, is that correct, of next year?
January the 8th.
Oh, even shorter. So January the 8th at this point. So definitely make a point of getting there to see and experience and immerse yourself into it. There's something for everybody in this, not only this exhibition, but at the museum as well. The story of Walt, the many films, the artists behind the many films, the talent behind so much of the entertainment that came out of the Walt Disney Company during Walt Disney's lifetime. And it's in such a gorgeous setting there in San Francisco, literally right off the Bay Bridge. So if you haven't had the opportunity to travel, get there. If you are unable to travel, you can still enjoy this wonderful exhibition. I encourage you to seek out Andreas. I think you guys put together a beautiful catalog from the
right here.
Yeah, the making of a masterpiece. And I haven't seen it yet, but I understand it's chocked full of all sorts of really remarkable drawings and beautiful artistry. Marina, I understand you had a hand in many of these choices and making it happen. Yeah.
Beautiful things.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So if anyone who's a student of animation on any level, professional on any level, this is a must-have.
It turned out not just to be a catalog. This is really an art book.
Yeah.
It really also takes you in its own way into the movie again. It's quite generous. We have 192 pages, I think. So it's quite thicker than the previous catalogs that were printed for other shows. So highly recommended. Yeah,
beautifully laid out, again, in the flavor of the exhibition, but also the artistry, to your point, as an art book. The artistry on this film is just unsurpassed. As I said earlier, you've got artists who really were steeped in this, established this industry, this art form for decades, and they're at the zenith of their careers, just firing on all systems here, and it's remarkable. So that can be found. You can get that on the Walt Disney Family Museum website. It can be ordered. Is that correct? And we'll make sure that that's
That is correct.
in the Spark. Put that a little later in this, so you can catch that, or you can also, I think you can find it on Amazon. So definitely take a look at it. It's really well worth it. For each of you, as we wrap this out, I want to thank you for your time. What is the most extraordinary thing for each of you about the experience of the exhibition, the experience of the film, the experience of the artistry of the Jungle Book?
Well, to me, it's just amazing to see how the film lives on. It refuses to go away and make room for other films. It is so popular. I mean, I saw it in Germany where I was a kid, where this movie was bigger than Star Wars or any other big. But this was the blockbuster of the decade, was Jungle Book. And I just want to give you like a little fun story that I want to share with you. Last weekend, just to have a little artistic break from the work that I was doing, I go on YouTube and I love to watch, this is just me, I love to watch The Voice singing show, but the Voice Germany, The Voice France, The Voice Italy. It's just, you get these different talents from all over the world. So I watched The Voice Germany, and you know, all those chairs, for those of you who know the show, they're all backward, you know, these are the blind auditions. And out comes this young guy, you know, from Germany, and he gives a knockout rendition of I Want to Be Like You. It brought the house down. 4 chairs turned immediately, you know, because the guy didn't even sing that well. But I think because it was the Jungle Book, you had to turn your chair, you know, and find out about this guy in the song. And again, the love for the film, it just keeps going and going and going. It was just wonderful to see.
Dear Sherman Brothers music and Terry Gilkinson and Bare Necessities, my goodness, you know, that's another aspect to this film and it is integrated into the exhibition as well, which I was so thrilled to see, is the music. And it's timeless. It's that great timeless quality that we still, when you hear it, everybody recognizes it. And, you know, come on, we've all hummed Bare Necessities. We've all hummed all sorts of great sing-alongs and events that we can all relate to and identify with. So thank you for bringing that up. Bruce, for you, what stands out about this entire experience?
Oh, you know, for me, I'm so close to it personally that really what all of this does for me is just give me a sense of the people who were involved and how dear they were to me. What a wonderful childhood I had growing up with my parents were terrific, and the experiences that I had as a kid, you know, wandering around the studio and being involved in this particular show, they are something I'll cherish forever. I think, you know, sometimes films, especially films like this one that have so much sense of the people enjoy so much, there was a real intention on the part of the people who made it to give something. You know, they really did want to give people. I mean, isn't that the essence of entertainment? Is making somebody feel good for no particular reason, and they managed to capture that in a way that I think it's going to stand the test of time. It's going to be around in you know, top 100 movies, even when there are a million more of them at some point in the very distant future, because it was just a special thing made by special people.
Marina, what has it been like for you to bring this treasured film to new audiences in a different forum?
This special exhibition, The Jungle Book, I mean, I think is a film that all the people our age was a big impact. To me, it was the movie. I stayed for, you know, the whole summer listening the songs. Of course, they were in Spanish because, you know, at that time I was born in Barcelona, so I knew all the songs and everything in Spanish. So I spent the whole summer listening and learning so I knew everything, every single word they were saying. So when Andreas proposed to do this exhibition, we just finished doing the Mickey Mouse exhibition, another beautiful show that we presented at the Walt Disney Family Museum. So he just came with this idea, and I didn't hesitate. I say, let's do it. I mean, we have to, we must do this. So for me, it's been a very important, I don't know, I think it's one of the best experience, because the accuracy of the characters and the character of the characters, you know, the way they develop and the way they are is so special that yeah, I mean, I feel very, you know, honored to be able to do this exhibition and work, of course, with people like Andreas or meeting Bruce, you know, is the best. So I will say to everyone in the planet, you cannot miss this exhibition, because it's one of the best shows that you can see and makes you happy. When you leave the museum, you leave with a smile, you know, people is happy when it's leaving, you know. We had other shows much more bold, you know, like the World War II exhibitions, which it was the previous one. And it was a beautiful exhibition too, very full on materials. This one, the Jungle Book, when you leave, people, you know, feels happy. So yeah, I feel very honored to be able to do this, you know.
Well, I've been there a number of times, and it's always a joy and delight. This is a real gem if you've not had an opportunity to visit, but I would highly encourage you to get online, take a look at the Walt Disney Family Museum's website. But if you get the opportunity to go, now's the time to definitely go. It is stunning. Marina, give us a little bit of background, a little overview of the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Well, for those unfamiliar with the museum, we are located at the Presidio of San Francisco. The museum was opened in 2009, and we host since then about 30 special exhibitions, including Mary Blair, Titus One, and, you know, subjects like World War II. The exhibition is about, the exhibition meaning the core galleries, is about 40,000 square feet, with contemporary interactive gallery space. This museum was founded by, co-founded by Diane Disney Miller, Walt's older daughter. And our effort and our mission here is to continue the effort and enthusiasm that Diane put in this museum to preserve his father's legacy. We are exploring a new initiative since 2021. Which is the Museum Animation Academy. This serves our mission is to build Walt's own inspiring story of covering adversity, fostering imagination and innovation, which Walt was completely, you know, into all these things. The Academy proposed to provide comprehensive training in art, animation, and storytelling, and other disciplines relevant to the animation and film industry, all nurturing educational environment. We kick off this program, as I mentioned it, on September 2021, and this is happening at the Eastside College preparatory school in East Palo Alto, and well, it's going very well, and we have a lot of, you know, people interested in this program. Anyways, you can learn more in our website, waltdisney.org, in case that, you know, we want to go further on this information. But basically is that, I mean, we try to preserve Diane's enthusiasm and effort that she put to create this museum.
It really is a gem, I think, and a wonderful space to explore animation. One of the real pioneers of animation, his story, but also the story of the artistry that has emanated from the studio, and the body of work from Walt Disney, but so many terrific new programs that you guys have as well. To your point, keeping the legacy of Walt Disney and his daughter Diane Disney Miller moving forward. So we're grateful for all that you guys do, and we want to do what we can to keep you doing that. So we gratefully appreciate your time and effort and talent.
To me, what was really interesting when I saw the museum for the first time at its opening day is to walk through it. And the phenomenal thing is that you really hear Walt Disney's life story from himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And this was a huge asset that they had access to interviews that Walt gave in the late 50s. There was a guy called Pete Martin who came to Walt's house in Beverly Hills and interviewed him for, I think, 2.5 days. So there are hours and hours where he really recounts his life. And that is all there at the museum. And by the time you're through and saw all the things that he achieved, and he tells you all about it, you feel like you know Walt Disney a little bit, and you just know what made him tick. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, some of the galleries, I mean, you like Andrea says, you can walk and you can learn everything through Walt's voice, which is very impressive.
You know what I would say too about that is that it's of all the people of that era, the great movie moguls of that era, you know, this certainly reveals Walt in a way that, to my knowledge, no other museum experience, no other physical experience even comes close to doing. But when you think about it compared to today's moguls, as it were, today's titans of industry, you know, the Steve Jobses and the Elon Musks and you can pick your field. People who have done something really courageous and bold and successful, I don't think we'll ever get a picture of them that comes anywhere near as intimate and as authentic and as revealing as what you get by strolling through the Disney Museum. It's the creation of his own daughter, you know, essentially, who wanted to tell her dad's story. And there's very little varnishing of the truth, you know. It's right out there. There's which isn't to say that there's anything bad in it at all, but it's not meant to try to pitch you or sell you or convince you of anything. It's just there to reveal a life that was a really remarkable one that's going to go down in history, and it's unusual in that way.
Diane had told me that it was important that generations ahead knew he was a man, he was a human, and not a company. We have generations thinking that Disney is only a company, but that there was a man, a very human man, who had a lot of challenges, and it's really a fabulous story. It's a remarkable experience, and definitely when I send friends, colleagues, students up there, plan on at least a day, and you're still only going to scratch the surface, especially when you have incredible exhibitions to take in, like the Jungle Book, making of a masterpiece. So again, it definitely does fill a gap between the parks, where sadly the sense of who Walt Disney was and still is today doesn't get explored as much. So definitely take in this gem. Well, I want to thank each of you for your time, your talents, and your expertise for bringing this celebration of the Jungle Book to us today for the Vancouver Spark Animation Festival. We are grateful for it, and please check out more information about the Walt Disney Family Museum, the exhibition, and the Jungle Book itself, and more on the 2022 Spark Animation Festival. Thanks for joining.
Welcome, everybody. People filling into the Zoom room. My name is Keith Blackmore. I'm the conference producer and chairman for the Spark Animation Festival. I'd like to welcome you to the online sessions of the Q&A. For those Disney fans that can't travel to San Francisco, to the Walt Disney Family Museum, we thought today what we would do is bring it to you. And in June, there's a brand new exhibition that's opened up, Walt Disney's The Jungle Book, making of a masterpiece. Yes, the 1967 animated classic celebrates its 55th anniversary this year. And it's a treasure trove of original animation documents with lots of rare artwork and ephemeral items there as well. Many of these pieces that have never been seen by the public before. And here to talk to us about the exhibition and also the companion book that he wrote on it is one of the organizers, designers, curators of the exhibition, the highly acclaimed animator and Disney legend, Andreas Deja. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. We have a few guests coming in. I think even some, I'm going to just take a look here. I think we might even have some friends visiting from Germany.
I just saw that on my screen. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to invite them to ask questions and type them in and such. And we'll try to bring that in. So first off, Andreas, why does the Jungle Book hold such a special place in your heart?
Well, that's a very simple answer I can give you. The Jungle Book was actually the first Disney animated movie I saw when I was a kid. And I was already 11 when it came out in Germany, where I grew up. And so anyway, it was my first Disney movie. I had liked Disney before through comic strips and some TV shows, but I'd never seen a Disney animated movie. It was The Jungle Book, and it changed my life. My head was spinning after I saw the movie. I was so overwhelmed and fascinated, and wanted to know how I can be a part of this in my adult future. And I wrote to the studio and all of that. And that led me to being hired at the studio, of course, years later. But it does hold a special place in my heart because it was the first one. And it's still my favorite, though.
Yes, yeah, there's many. But yes, I know it has a deep, deep place in your heart. Now, let's talk about the film as being made at Disney Studios in the 60s. You have the source material, Kipling's book. But now you need to adapt it, or they need to adapt it visually. And so enter Bill Peet.
Right.
Is the key.
So that's an interesting story because Bill Peet was, I would say, just below Walt Disney, the best story man that probably ever had. And he had done really well on the movie called 101 Dalmatians. There were a lot of breakthroughs involved in that movie. It had a brand new look, new art direction, but also it was the first Disney movie that was storyboarded by one person only. So there was no story crew. You usually have 10 people, 12, 15 even, story people working on these Disney feature. It was only Bill Peet who basically storyboarded and conceived the whole film. The movie did really well. And then Walt trusted Bill Peet more and more in taking over responsibilities and storyboarding the next one, which was Sword in the Stone. Unfortunately, that was not a box office smash the first time it came around. So Walt became a little bit more critical toward Bill Peet running the show, so to speak, at least in terms of story work. So by the time it came to Jungle Book, which was the next one, Peet had storyboarded a Kipling Jungle Book, which is dark in some places, does not have a light tone that Walt was so famous for. So Walt objected, and he said, we really can't do this version, Bill. I need a light film. I just want to have fun with the characters, and I want to have fun with some music, and let's just take the characters from Kipling and kind of create our own thing with it. So Bill Peet had done so much work on his version that he was upset, and he left the studio, and then became after that a children's book illustrator and writer, and a very good one too. So Jungle Book had to start over again. And then other story people, such as Floyd Norman, got a chance to move up and re-storyboard the whole thing the way I wanted it to be, a light, breezy, fun film.
Yeah, very much so. And now also bringing in Mowgli Reitherman as the director, and every director brings his vision, his voice to the film, as it were. Talk about the importance of Woolie's contributions to the Jungle Book.
Well, the interesting in doing some research for the exhibition and the book, I ran across, because I had access to the Disney archives, and I wanted some documents to find out whether there are any notes or any meetings that were transcribed during Jungle Book. And of course there were, and these things have never been published. And it was an eye-opener to me, like who was on whose side, who maybe liked the Bill Peet version more. And of course, most people sided with Walt Disney and his lighter version. But there was a kind of a spicy in-office communication note written by Woolie Reitherman to Bill Peet, pointing out all the things that Walt didn't like about Pete's version, because Pete also had certain actors in mind to be the voices that Walt and the animators didn't agree with. So it's just very, very interesting to see what went on sort of on a daily basis at the studio. Also Walt, this is also a Woolie Reitherman note to the animators that Walt just saw the King Louis sequence. He saw the pencil animation. He liked it very much. He liked what Frank Thomas and Milt Kahl animated on the character, especially Milt Kahl's work, but he didn't like the look of the face of King Louis. We need to make the eyes a little bit larger because Walt couldn't see them. And he also wants some more hair on King Louis's head. So Walt gave these very specific graphic notes to these master animators. And I actually think he's right in this case, in King Louis's case, because I saw the old model, what he looked like with his tiny beady eyes. Again, it's very much Walt's film, not just in terms of story, but even in terms of look of the characters.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of those 9 old men, Ollie Johnston, Milt Kahl. What role, maybe you could expand about their role in making this film, and Frank Thomas and others?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because there were really only 4 supervising animators. It was Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, and John Lounsbury, and then a few more animators. But the supervising, the one that were responsible for sequences, were really only those 4, and that's a small crew. And they actually took over not a character or 1 or 2 characters, they took over a whole section, a whole sequence. So Ollie Johnston did the opening of the Baloo sequence where the bear comes in and the boy doesn't want to deal with him. And so Ollie animated all of that. And then when the bear is starting to teach Mowgli how to box and have fun and all of that, that's when Frank Thomas took over. But these are long sections where these animators would do all of the characters in them. Another example would be toward the end of the movie where Shere Khan is interrogating Kaa the snake to find out where the man cub is. And that whole section with Kaa and Shere Khan was animated by only 1 animator, and that was Milt Kahl. So they did certain sections that they were really responsible not for the animation only, but for the continuity, how the scenes would hooked up, what would be a close-up, what would be a long shot. So a lot of responsibility in these guys.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the man himself, Walt Disney. This was the last film that Walt worked on before he died. And we were talking to Jake earlier about the strike of 1941, and it really created a division for Walt. Now he was management and that was this the workers. But he made contributions to this film as well. Maybe you could talk about those contributions that Walt made. He mentioned a few of the notes and that his observations, but he did more than that with this film.
Well, the biggest contribution is really the change of mood and change of pace. He said we're not. Some people might have heard this when he was holding up a copy of Kipling's Jungle Book, and he asked his crew, "Has anybody read this?" Including the Sherman brothers. They were in that meeting and told me this.
Oh, yeah.
Has anybody read the Jungle Book? And they said no. He says, "Good. Don't read it. We're not going to do this story. I'm going to do a Disney version. We're going to do our version, and we're going to have fun with this." And he did have a lot of fun because it was halfway through the film before he passed away. This is Ollie Johnston talking to me, that Walt just, within a meeting, all of a sudden leaned back and said, guys, I'd forgotten how much fun this is, working out all this story, character stuff, because Walt had been away on so many other projects, Disneyland and TV shows and all these other plans, that he really hadn't been that much in these animation meetings. And he really enjoyed himself and really made it his film.
Yeah. Cool. We want to talk about the exhibition at the Walt Disney Family Museum, and Marina Delgado, the curator, has kindly shared with us some slides, and I'm going to share my screen, and we'll take a look at these. And as we look through them, you can just talk through it, okay, Andreas? There's one part I think we have a clip with Marina's talking, but for the most part, it's just silent. We can add. I'm just going to share my screen here. Let's see if I can find that. Share sound and. Let's see. Oh, what's going on here? Come on. Oh, come on.
In the meantime, I'm trying to tilt my head so I don't have these strange reflections over my eyes.
Oh yeah, okay.
There you go.
Oh my goodness. I'm not getting it. I'm on this new computer. Come on. Come on. What is going on here? Oh, darn. I'm not, for some reason, it's going into my system preferences and not allowing me to do this.
To just simply screen share.
Hold on. Open system. Yeah. I apologize. That's too bad. I'll try it once again.
And then we can always do plan B with more questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's kicking me to some system preferences things. So security and privacy. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Well, yeah, we could do charades. Yeah. But what I like, okay, we could talk about the exhibition because you've seen it, of course, you're there and you curated the whole thing, so you know it backwards and forwards. But one of the things I really liked, besides seeing all those rare documents and such, but is interactive as well. We have a section there where you can do a green screen and you can dance with Baloo the bear and put you right into the movie itself, but also the voice actors. We haven't really talked about that. If you're to go to the interview that we had originally a couple months ago with Mindy Johnson, we had the voice of Mowgli, Bruce Reitherman. But there's so much there with the voice actors and the singers and the songs of the Sherman Brothers. It's so tremendous. Maybe you could just talk about the exhibition itself.
Yeah, I was of course honored to. I'm still pinching myself that we pulled this off and that I was asked to do this. It's crazy, but what I didn't want to have is a museum-style presentation of this show. Meaning, there's a wall with some artwork, and here's another wall, and there's more original artwork. I think that wouldn't do. The more interactive we can be, the more immersive this exhibition could be, the better I think people would like it. So I thought, why don't we take the story of Walt Disney's Jungle Book, the film story, and retell it so people get reintroduced to those characters and sequences, interactions, and then at the same time, people also learn something about the process. So again, we have documents, we have rough animation drawings, early models, final models, animation drawings, cell setup. So you see really the whole process in the exhibition as well as being retold, the whole story. One thing I thought was tremendous that I was really happy about, we had access to the Disney Animation photo library, and they happen to have a lot of high-res scans of original artwork from the film, like those backgrounds and those amazing jungle backgrounds. So we were able to blow them up and have a whole wall in the exhibition, or several walls, with life-size trees. So when you open the door, you're immediately walking into that jungle, being with those characters. So that was a big plus. And then back to the interactive thing, as you said, Keith, that we do have this green screen thing, which was sort of my idea. I didn't know if we could pull this off technically, but there are three different clips from the movie that if you stand in the right place, like in front of this green screen, it'll take you in the movie and you can dance along with King Louie or Baloo. So that's interactive. We also have voices where we have three scenes from the film, and you can dub your own voice onto Baloo, Bagheera, or Mowgli, and that's a lot of fun. So you're always trying to have like a hands-on approach a little bit, have people be part of the exhibition. That was the goal.
What I like too about this museum is and Diane Disney, Walt's daughter, helped us appreciate, is that she wanted to focus on her dad as the man. We know him as it's the corporate title and the big corporation, the megacorp now, but he was also a man that had flaws, but also did greatness in his life and was experimenting and pushing the bounds of animation, because you don't get this at Disneyland. We don't go to Disney World for this, but if you go to the museum, we really see this displayed in these exhibitions as well.
Yeah, and that was the same thought that was going through my mind is we just look at Jungle Book and it is this masterpiece, and the characters are so alive and so real, yet they are drawings that you wonder who are these people, you know, who can do this even. And I wanted to make these artists human to the audience or to the visitors. So we have some film clips where they actually talk about the way they thought about their characters. We have a nice clip, well, with most of them, with Mowgli Reitherman, Milt Kahl, and Frank Thomas, where they talk about how they animated these scenes. We have pencil tests, which are just the animator's pencil drawings. You see the character move without color or anything. And that is a magic stage for me, because that's really their work. When they're done with a scene, it's not in color yet, and you see, you're reminded again, yeah, these are actual drawings. Somebody figured all of this out. So we have a whole bunch of those. And then again, you know, in those old documents I talked about earlier, the arguing and the disagreements of where this picture should go. This was all part of the process. This was not a place where this was not Santa's workshop, you know, where Walt was Santa Claus and everybody was just working away, being happily ever after. You know, there were creative disagreements, and people left, and things had to be started over again, and models had to be changed. So again, I was trying to push the human factor that human beings actually created this masterpiece.
We forget it. Now, our friend in Germany, Johannes Walters, is asking,
Right there.
So he says the impact of this film and the lasting impact, it still resonates today. Why is that? Well, I think there's a lot of ingredients, but maybe you could talk to that about how the immortality of this film, and it continues to resonate with audience 55 years later.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most popular Disney films. I think it's Europe's most popular animated film ever, certainly Germany's. And there's an article in Variety or the Hollywood Reporter analyzing this, that no other film had more visitors in Germany in history than the 1967 Jungle Book. So it is huge. It made me who I am, or it motivated me to get into animation, and not just myself. There are famous filmmakers right now, such as Pete Docter, Brad Bird, John Musker, and several others. They were all influenced by the Jungle Book. That was the movie that made them want to go and work in this medium, because we all love character animation. We like story-driven films too, but the Jungle Book is the most character-driven, because the story is so light and easy that you really focus on the characters, and you really find out who they are and how they interact. I think more so than in any other Disney film, and that just fascinated my generation. And then of course these wonderful people and filmmakers continue on the art of animating characters and making them real.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I look at my own life, and that's the one film I remember from my youth. I mean, we saw lots, but this is the one that stands out. Last question, we're running out of time. Mushka, you finished your film, your personal film. So what's the plans for 2023, premiering it and showing it?
Well, we're basically done. I'm not drawing on it anymore. All that work is done. It's all in color. Skywalker Sound is doing the final mix right now. So I'm going to go up there in mid-December to approve the final mix, and that is it. And then we're looking at festivals like the Berlin Film Festival coming up in February, Animator in Spain, Annecy, and all of that stuff. So people can catch it there. And then eventually, hopefully toward the end of next year on some streamer. Now there is a streamer that has the word Disney in it, and maybe, just maybe. Just throwing it out there.
Just saying, before we go, Andreas, do you have a copy of the book? Because we should mention this. Like, if you want to learn more about the Jungle Book exhibition, and this is the book that Andreas wrote and helped prepare, go order the book. Go to www.waltdisney.org, order the book, learn more about this exhibition. It's just tremendous, this book. There's never been a making of book beforehand for the film.
It really hasn't. There has been on many other Disney movies, but there's been one on Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast, but not really on the Jungle Book. So you get the whole story and the artwork, and it's a sizable book, and get it. It's fun to look at, and it's fun to read.
There you go. Thanks, Andreas. It's always a pleasure having you, and thanks for supporting Spark. We look forward to seeing Mushka next year and seeing more of your work. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.